Hello, welcome to Sailor Space. So today we are going to be talking about the four-stroke diesel engine. So before we go on, to click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, get notified, click on the notification button, and we'd like to hear your comment on how best you could improve the video. Okay, after doing that, so you like to know what is a diesel engine before we talk about a four-stroke diesel engine. A diesel engine is an internal combustion engine that converts the chemical energy from fuel that is being burnt in the combustion chamber to mechanical energy. So a diesel engine is divided into two types. That's the four-stroke engine and the two-stroke engine. So definitely the two-stroke engine will be a topic for another day. So let's continue. In this slide, we are going to be looking at first the basic component of a marine diesel engine, a four-stroke engine. So we'll start with the first component. So we may not actually be taking up all the components, but we'll definitely be taking up of the basic components that are necessary for the effective running of the diesel engine. Okay, so let's dive into it. The first component we'll talk about is a piston, which is connected to the connecting rod via the gudgeon pin. Then we have the connecting rod. The connecting rod connects the piston to the crankshaft. Then we now have the crankshaft, which is connected to the connecting rod. You see, it has crank series, it has the crank web, has the crank pins, has the crank journals, which are finally connected together to make the component function effectively. So now we now have another component called the engine cylinder. That's where the combustion takes place, the burning of the fuel, the air, and production of the energy. Okay, so as the name implies, four-stroke engine, it takes four stroke of the engine to complete two revolution, which is a working cycle. So a stroke is when the piston moves from the top down, and even moves from down up. So now at the top it is called the top dead center, at the bottom it is called the bottom dead center. So four stroke makes a working cycle, and two revolution of the crankshaft completes that working cycle. So that means the piston has to rotate up, and down to give one revolution of the crankshaft. So this means that two stroke of the piston equals one crankshaft revolution. Okay, so we have the next component, the cylinder head, which leads us to the next component, which is the valves. The valves are mounted on the cylinder head. We have the inlet valve and also the exhaust valve. Now, the inlet valve is an opening which allows fresh air to fill in the combustion chamber for combustion to take place. This air can be gotten from atmospheric air, or it can also be gotten from pressured air from a turbocharger. Then that leads us to the exhaust valve. The exhaust valve is an opening that takes out unwanted gases from the combustion chamber in order to give us efficient combustion. So moving forward, we have the nozzle. So the nozzle is a sprayer hole which allows fuel to be atomized into the engine cylinder for combustion. You can take it to be the tip of the fuel injector. So now going forward, we have the fuel injector. The fuel injector is being connected to the fuel pump. It's more like an avenue through which the pressurized fuel from the fuel pump passes through the nozzle and is being atomized into the engine cylinder. So it has passages in which that takes the fuel to the fuel injector. Okay, other components include the camshaft, the push rod, and the rocker arms. So quickly, let's get to talk about the working principle of a diesel engine, a four-stroke diesel engine. How do four-stroke engine actually work? How do they come about the production of energy? How do they come about the power that is being generated for work to be done? Apparently, the four-stroke engine, as the name implies, has four strokes. The first stroke we are going to talk about, that is the suction stroke or the induction stroke. In this stroke, fresh air, the blue part, is being drawn into the engine cylinder. The As the inlet valves open, allowing pushing the piston down. This air can be gotten from the atmosphere or from the turbocharger. So as this stroke continues, it drags in fresh air from either the atmosphere or the turbocharger, fills up the whole combustion chamber as the inlet valve opens. So if you can see in this process, the piston goes down. And if you know, for efficient combustion to take place, we need three components: that's the heat, the oxygen, and the fuel. So the first stroke of the engine has to do with the oxygen, filling the combustion space with enough oxygen to allow for effective combustion to take place. You could see the whole space, the blue space, if it is filled with air. That is, the piston has been moved from top dead center to bottom dead center, and the whole space has been filled up with fresh air, preparing the engine cylinder, preparing the engine for combustion to take place. So this first stroke, we call it suction stroke or the induction stroke. So let's get into the next stroke. So as you can see, the piston is now at bottom dead center. It has just completed one stroke. That has movement from top dead center to bottom dead center. Note, at the bottom dead center, in this stroke, the inlet valve has been shut, is closed. Now, as the crankshaft rotates, the piston will start moving up again to top dead center to complete another stroke, which we call that stroke the compression stroke. In this compression stroke, the piston gradually moves up, compressing the air which is already being filled up in the engine cylinder, the valves. Now, the inlet valve is shut, the exhaust valve is shut. It is very important that these valves remain shut. If not, there will be leakages of air as the compression takes place, and these leakages of air will lead to an incomplete combustion, because the fresh air will be leaving the engine cylinder, so there will not be enough air for combustion to take place. So now, during the compression process, there is increase in temperature and volume, making it very high. That produces heat, our second element of combustion. So now you see we now have oxygen. The oxygen has been compressed and it gives us heat. So now the next component that we'll be looking at will be the fuel, which will be at the next stage of the first stroke. Now we are on the second stage, which is called the compression stroke. So this stroke is what helps produce the heat of compression, from the name compression ignition engine. Now, the next stroke is called the power stroke. The piston is currently at top dead center with all the valves closed. Now, the engine cylinder is very hot because of the increased amount of temperature and pressure inside the cylinder. So at this moment, the fuel injector atomizes the correct amount of fuel into the cylinder, and the hot air in the cylinder ignites. With the energy from the hot air, it pushes the piston down, achieving the third stroke, which we call the power stroke. Now the three elements of combustion has been fulfilled. That's heat, oxygen, and fuel, which is what bursts the power stroke. Now you can see that chemical energy from the fuel is being converted to heat and pressure, which gives us the mechanical energy that we need to drive our basic components via the transmission shaft, depending on the component to be driven. So now this leads us to the next stroke, which is called the exhaust stroke. Now as the power stroke finishes, the engine cylinder is being filled up with exhaust gases. Now for the next stroke to happen, the engine cylinder has to be cleared of these exhaust gases, so that it will prepare the engine for the next combustion process. Now we now have a function for the exhaust valve. Remember, the inlet valve allows fresh air to enter into the cylinder, same also as the exhaust valve is used to remove the exhaust gases which is inside the engine cylinder out. So in this particular stroke, the piston now is at bottom dead center. So now as the crankshaft keeps rotating, the piston starts moving up, the exhaust valves open. As the exhaust valves open, it allows the exhaust gases that are inside the engine cylinder to be removed through the exhaust manifold. This removal process has a whole lot of function because it clears the engine cylinder off the exhaust gases and prepares it for the next combustion process to take place. While the exhaust gases goes through the exhaust manifold, it can be channeled out through the funnel to the atmosphere, or it can be channeled to the turbocharger, which will be used in a turbocharged engine for admitting pressurized air into the system. So this stroke is known as the exhaust stroke, which leads us to the four strokes, which makes a full working cycle. That's the induction stroke, the compression stroke, the power stroke, and the exhaust stroke. Thank you for watching. We've come to the end of today's session on four-stroke diesel engine. Do well to click on the like button, subscribe, click on notification bell so that you get notified whenever there is a new video. And we will really appreciate your comment in the comment section. Hear from you another time.